In today's lesson, I want to look at how to create minor scales. Now, the first minor scale I like to look at is A minor. And the reason I like to look at this is because it's easiest to see when you're looking at a keyboard. So, if we look at our circle of fifths, this is just half of our circle of fifths. We've already looked at C major, but we're going to look today at A minor, which is right here. And this is what we would call the relative minor to C major because it shares the same key signature. So if you look at this key signature for A minor, there are no sharps and no flats, just like C major. So if we look at it on a keyboard, the most interesting thing is that we don't use any sharps or flats, but there's also three types of minor scales. And that's true for A minor. It's true for all of the 12 minor scales. Just like we had 12 major scales, we're going to have 12 minor scales for a total of 24 scales. Now, the first scale to learn is our natural minor scale. So we would call this an A natural minor scale. Now, if we look at the pattern of whole and half steps, from our A to our B, we have a whole step. And from our B to our C, we have our semitone, or our half step. From our C to our D, we have another whole step. From our D to our E, we have another whole step. So this is our first tetrachord, A, B, C, and D. Now, from E to F, we should have the same tetrachord. Let's see if our pattern holds out to be true. So from E to F, we have our semitone. And then from F to G, we have our whole tone. And from G to A, we have another whole tone. So our pattern for all of our minor scales are going to be whole, half, or semitone, whole, whole, half, or semitone, whole, whole. So let me write that down here so it's a little bit easier to see. Whole, semitone, two whole tones, and then a semitone, and then whole, and then whole. So if you memorize this pattern, then we can start on any note, and we'll be able to get more easily to our scales. So that was the natural minor scale. The next scale in our series to learn is our harmonic minor scale. I'd really recommend learning the natural minor first, because from the harmonic, or from the natural minor, our harmonic minor scale simply raises the 7th scale degree. So if we count from the tonic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, our 7th note in the natural scale is a G, and in our harmonic minor scale, it's going to be G sharp. So we're going to actually not play a G, and we're going to raise the G up to a G sharp. Now that creates what's called a leading tone. And so when we talk about chords, we're going to be able to lead a little bit easier into A from the G sharp, and that will establish our A as a key. So actually, the harmonic minor scale is probably the most common out of the 3 minor scales, because in practice, in music, composers like to establish the key. And so by having a G sharp, by having a half step or a semitone between the 7th and the 8th note, or the tonic, you're going to be able to more easily establish the key that we're in, which in this case is A minor. Now, the third scale, and probably the least common of the 3 minor scales, is going to be our melodic minor scale. I would also say that this is probably the most difficult one to remember, because the scale actually changes depending on its form. Let's look at the normal form of the melodic minor scale. As we're going up the scale, typically we take the harmonic minor scale and we raise the 6th scale degree. So normally our note for our 6th scale degree was F, but in our melodic minor scale, and only in the melodic minor scale, it's going to become F sharp. And again, we're not going to play F, and we're not going to play G, because that would create a 9-note scale. So instead, we're going to play F sharp, and G sharp. Now the confusing thing, and this is the part where I really want you to listen, on the way back down, the scale actually changes, and instead of raising the F and the G to a F sharp and a G sharp, we actually use the natural minor version on the way down. So on the way up, our notes are A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A, but on the way down, we use the natural version. So our notes are A, G, F, E, D, C, B, and then A. So it's really just these two notes, the F and the G versus the F sharp and the G sharp, that change depending on if you're going up or going down. So pay careful attention, especially if you're asked what is the harmonic minor scale or the melodic minor scale. If we say, oh, is it going down or is it going up? The notes are going to be a little bit different. And again, that's only true for the melodic scale. That's the only scale that changes. The harmonic scale always stays the same, going up or down, and the natural stays the same, going up or down. But the melodic scale changes depending on if you're going up or if you're going down. Now, looking at the natural minor scale, A minor scale on the staff, it's going to look something like this. Now, you can kind of ignore the first and the third measures, and let's just focus our attention on the second measure right here. The first note of our A minor scale, again, is going to be an A. And again, it could be that A, which is the second space from the bottom, or it could be this A in the bass clef, or it could be a number of other A's. So don't get stuck on the idea of just having one particular starting note, but when you're writing it out, you can choose any A to start from. Typically, we want to start lower if we're going up, and we want to start higher if we're going down so that we don't run out of room. Because if you look at measure 3, we might end up running out of room and writing using ledger lines. And that can just be a little bit time intensive. Oftentimes we can make more mistakes. So the first note of our A minor scale is our tonic. And then the second note is what we're going to call the supertonic. And the third note is the mediant note, or C. In this context, the fourth note is going to be, again, our subdominant. We talked about that in the major version, in the C major version. Subdominant is the fourth, what we call the fourth scale degree. Now, our dominant is just another name for the fifth scale degree, and that's going to be E, probably our second most important note in the scale. And our F is our submediant. Again, just like with our subdominant, where we go down 5, 2, 3, 4, 5 to our D. Our submediant is going to be down 3, so 1, 2, 3. So this is our submediant right there. So anytime you see the word sub, it's going to mean below, but we normalize it and bring it into the normal range of the scale. Now the supertonic, or the subtonic rather, is going to be subtonic. So it's going to be below the tonic. So if you think about this note as being tonic, subtonic is right below the tonic. And also, if you look at the second scale degree, supertonic, super just means above, so supertonic is going to be right above the tonic. So all of the notes are going to be predicated upon where they're at in the scale. So super versus sub, you can kind of think of it that way. If you dominant is 5, and then if you have a subdominant, it's going to be 5 but below. Mediant is the third, so if you have a submediant, it's 3 below. But of course, we're going to fold it within a scale just to make it a little bit easier to write. Now, if we were going to write the harmonic minor version, so let's say I didn't want the natural minor, but I wanted the harmonic minor. I'm just going to put harm for now. Again, remember on the staff, we would raise the 7th scale degree. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we put a sharp before the G. Oftentimes, no matter what scale we're creating, I always encourage students to create the natural version first and then add the sharp afterwards, because if you have to think of the sharps and the flats while you're creating more complex scales, it can be kind of challenging and a little bit daunting. Now, if we're looking at the other version, the final version, which is our melodic minor version, so I'll cross this out again and put MEL for melodic. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to raise the 6th and the 7th scale degree going up the scale, And then as we go back down the scale, we're going to lower. So oftentimes, we'll put a natural in front of the 6th and the 7th scale degree, just to show that going down, it's going to be the natural version of it. So that's the way we would write that on the staff.